I'm a 20-year-old female living in Michigan. I was 16 years old when these events happened. I'm a huge athletic nerd, and I go hiking every day unless I feel lazy. Well, I picked the wrong day to go hiking, and I experienced something I never want to experience again. I drove to the hiking trail I go to just about every time, the same one I always choose. That day, I saw a creepy guy who looked like he was in his 30s, but me being as stubborn and hard-headed as I was back then, I ignored my gut and started jogging on the trail anyway. I took a short glance at him and headed onto the trail. I got 200 to 300 yards away from the entrance and took a short break. Then I heard a scream. It sounded like a man. I looked down the path and my heart dropped. I saw the guy running straight toward me. As adrenaline rushed through me, I started to run as fast as I could. This guy was running so fast he was catching up with me, and I was a really fast runner. He ran like he had taken 2 shots of steroids or something. As I started to cry and panic, I took a sharp turn into the woods and started running back toward the parking lot area. I kept hearing his footsteps not far behind me, but as I kept running, the footsteps started to slow down as I got closer and closer to the parking lot. At last, I made it to the parking lot and cried tears of joy. I took out my cell phone and called the cops. Not long after, they arrived and searched the area. They actually found the man. He was a 37-year-old homeless man that had been living in those woods, and they said they found a butcher knife in one of his coat pockets. To this day, I'm glad I did ROTC in high school, or else he might have caught up to me. God only knows what he would have done if he did. I was 20 years old when this happened. I had left home when I was 16 or 17 and decided to explore the world to see what I could find. I'd lived in Texas and Louisiana most of my life, having been raised in Louisiana for the most part. I went to Missouri, to New York, California, anywhere in the US I could have decided to go, but finally I decided to go home. Up until then, I'd been staying in Oklahoma when I received a phone call from my mom saying that she might be dying from cancer. I came to find out later that she actually wasn't. She just wanted me home. I was hitchhiking through Oklahoma and was near Chickasaw National Park. For 2 days, I hadn't been able to catch a ride. I was sticking out my thumb, doing all that, and nobody stopped. So I decided to just set up a tent in the national park. I decided to explore some and followed the paved road until I got to the camping area. There was a fire pit off a little ways from the road, and it was a clear area with picnic tables, so I decided that's where I was going to set up camp for the night. I ended up leaving camp to explore a little bit more and followed a deer trail into the woods. As I was walking, I looked to my left on the ground, and there was a hawk laying there with no head. But the really weird part is it looked like the head had been burned off. An eerie feeling came over me, but I just brushed it away as me being paranoid. I had already had some paranormal experiences in the past, but I never came across one where it involved animals. I walked away and went back to the area where I had decided to pitch my tent that night. I sat there until it started getting dark. Then I started setting up my tent. I left my tent flap open because it was a cool afternoon. Finally, night came, and the street lamps that were along the paved road came on. The lights were actually good enough that I could read a book. At that time, I think I was reading Queen of the Damned by Anne Rice. As time went on, I started to get sleepy, so I decided to zip up my tent flap. As I did, I looked over at the street light that was directly in front of my tent. Standing there directly under the street light was some sort of creature. It looked like it was just as tall as the street light itself, and it was standing directly underneath it. Its hair was very, very long, and it looked a little hunched. I couldn't see any eyes because the hair seemed to be hanging in front of its face. It was all black as far as I could tell. The little bit of skin I could see was its hands, which clearly went past its knees. The hands were just hanging there, and its nails were black, very black, so dark it seemed to absorb the light. It just stood there, and it seemed as if the air surrounding it was vibrating. There was a type of static in the air. Now, don't get me wrong, I was very startled and afraid. I didn't know what this was. Then suddenly, underneath the hair, I could see white start to show. It was like the creature was smiling at me. It stood there for a very long time. Finally, as I was looking at it, something came over me. Now, you may not believe me, but I know it happened, and I know that it happened to me. I grew angry. I felt a rage inside me, and it grew very strong. I stared this creature down. I got out of my tent, stood up, and I looked straight at it and said,
"I'm not afraid of you."
It seemed to make the creature laugh, and all that did was make me even more angry. I stood my ground, and again I said,
"I'm not afraid of you."
I stood there staring at it for what seemed like the longest time, when all of a sudden I heard a loud snap behind me. I turned around quickly to find out what the noise was. There was nothing there. Then a thought suddenly occurred. That thing's probably behind me now. I turned around quickly again and looked towards the streetlight, and it was gone. I bundled up in my sleeping bag after it disappeared. That night, as I slept, I had a horrible nightmare of the creature standing over me, with a toothy grin. The next morning, I packed up my stuff and looked toward the streetlight where the thing had been standing. There was blood on the street lamp pole. I no longer felt any anger inside of me. I was just terrified. So I gathered up all my stuff and got out of there as quickly as I could. I headed to the highway, stuck my thumb out, and thankfully, somebody picked me up. I've never been back to Chickasaw Park since that night, and I never plan on going again. A word of warning: be careful where you camp. You never know what you might come across out in the woods. I started hiking the Appalachian Trail alone in 2019. I'd done plenty of multi-day trips before, but never solo. I picked a remote section of Pennsylvania, 4 days, starting on a Thursday to miss the weekend crowds. The first 2 days were perfect. I saw maybe 3 or 4 hikers total, exchanged brief hellos, and then soaked in the solitude. On the third morning, I noticed something strange. A pair of boots placed neatly beside the trail. Laces tied together. They looked relatively new, but no one was around. I took a photo, posted it to a hiking forum asking if anyone had lost them, and kept going. An hour later, I found a shirt folded on a rock, then socks, then pants. Each item was placed deliberately, almost ceremonially, at regular intervals along the trail. My stomach tightened. I knew about missing 411 cases, the unsettling pattern of people vanishing in national parks, sometimes found miles away from their clothes, sometimes never found at all. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe someone had a psychotic break. Maybe it was a weird art installation or something. But I was hours away from the nearest road, and my phone had no signal. That's when I heard the footsteps behind me. Not animal footsteps, the deliberate pace of someone walking. I spun around, but there was nothing. Footsteps stopped, so I waited, heart pounding, scanning the dense trees, but still only silence. I started walking faster. The footsteps resumed, matching my pace. I broke into a jog, but so did they. I ran flat out for 10 minutes until my lungs burned. Then I stopped, gasping, listening. Still only silence. Then, from somewhere off the trail to my right, a voice called out,
"Hello, Sarah."
My name, clear as day. I hadn't told anyone my name on the trail. It wasn't on my pack or visible anywhere. So, I abandoned the trail, bushwhacking directly south toward where my map showed a highway. I didn't stop until I hit pavement 3 hours later. My legs were all torn up and cut by briars, and I was exhausted. Thankfully, a trucker gave me a ride to the nearest town. I reported everything to the park rangers. They found the clothes I described, all belonging to a hiker named Marcus Chen, who'd been reported missing 6 days earlier. His car was still at the trailhead. They found no trace of him, but they did find something else. At each point where I'd seen clothing, there were additional items buried in the leaves just off the trail. Photographs, dozens of them, of different hikers on various trails. The photos appeared to have been taken from a distance, without the subjects knowing. None of the people in the photographs have been identified, other than one, me. I recognized my own face in 3 of them, taken during my 2 days on the trail. To this day, they've never found Marcus Chen.